Too many times we hear about the story of the man on his deathbed looking back on his life, listing the things he wished he had done. Too often we hear the elders in our own personal lives tell us they had great ideas they never followed through on, or they had missed opportunities looking back they wish they had taken. In this episode, I sit down with my friend Austin Legg, and we talk about changing your career path, making that decision when it seems impossible, and avoiding getting stuck in the proverbial golden handcuffs. We discuss being a world record holder, becoming a doer rather than a talker, surrounding yourself with people who support and challenge us, and of course, Bigfoot. Join us as we dive into some personal experiences, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as we did. Before we dive into this episode, guys, I want to urge you to subscribe to the podcast, whether that's in your podcast app or on YouTube, and also connect with me on social media on Instagram at StephenLopes_MOB. I also want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, which is N1 Outdoors, hunting, fishing, and the outdoors all in one. Connect with them on Instagram at N1 Outdoors and check out their website at n1outdoors.com. That's N the letter, 1 the digit, outdoors.com. Enjoy this episode, guys. I talked with Austin Legg. We had an absolute blast. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and connect with me on social media. All right, guys, enjoy this one. Let's dive in. I got a good workout in the garage tonight. It's, I don't know if you know Celsius, but it's 28 degrees here right now, so it's pretty warm. So getting the sweat on out there, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And trying to push my limits a little bit, so that's good.
That's cool. Having a garage gym is the best, man. Like, it was about 45 minutes ago. My wife was like, hey, why don't you go work out? And when you got to go to the gym, it's like, we factor in 10, 15 minutes of drive time each way, some time to get warmed up, get settled, And man, when it's in your garage, it's like, okay, go change. And, 2 minutes later, you're working out. So
yeah, there's no excuse.
Yeah. Having a home gym is a game changer. I love it.
Yeah, you picked up an off-grid rack from Sorinex, right?
I did. Yep, I did.
That's awesome. I've got like a generic squat rack. It's kind of like a budgety one. It's from Northern Lights, a Canadian company here, but it does the job. But the off-grid rack is real slick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've known those guys at Sorinex for a few years now, and I'm pretty good friends with them, and so I support them in any way that I can. And when they came out with that off-grid rack, I was like, man, this is an absolute game changer, because I've always struggled with home gyms for the fact that, one, I've never wanted to dump $2,000 or $2,500 into one all at once, and then I've never wanted to sacrifice half my garage and not be able to move my vehicle inside. And with that, it only sits like 12 inches off the wall. And I can squat, I can bench, I can do everything I want to do. And it didn't break the bank, and it doesn't kill my garage space. So it's been incredible.
Yeah. I love the design where you put the barbell up on top, and then then it becomes your pull-up bar.
Yep.
Oh, I freaking love that. It's genius.
It's awesome. And what I did with mine, I noticed that having that up there was starting to chew up the barbell. And, that's a $200, $300 barbell. I don't really want it to get chewed up. So I went to the hardware store and bought just a pipe, like a $12 galvanized 5-foot pipe. And I screwed caps on the end. Perfect. And so now it won't slide off the edge, but I was able to basically make my own pull-up bar for $15.
Yeah, now it's permanent.
And it's permanent. I don't have to move it up and down when I want to do pull-ups.
Oh, so, yeah. I love the off-grid rack. When that came out, I was like, if only I was in the market, I'd be totally down. I don't know how much it would cost to ship to Canada, but I don't know. Are you in North Carolina?
I'm actually in Idaho, so I'm on the West Coast.
Oh, okay. So you're not close to the Sorinex guys.
No, they're in South Carolina.
South Carolina, okay.
But I've been out there twice now, and they've got an awesome setup out there. I've done some hunting out there with those guys, and they're great folks. But yeah, they're a ways away from us. Yeah,
Bert's a nice dude. I mean, I don't know him on a personal level, but from what I've seen, and I've connected with him a little bit because he was going to come on the podcast. He might still. Seems like a really nice guy.
Cool. Yeah, he's awesome. I can't recommend him enough, man.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to chat with you here, because in your email you're like, oh, I'm nothing special, but you're pretty interesting. So, I mean, just your Instagram feed alone is pretty awesome.
Thanks, man.
So, one thing before we get into it is I want to ask you about the little AK you have. Is that Is that an AK-74U or something
Yeah,
along those lines?
no. It's actually called a Mini Draco is the name of it. And it's from a company called Century Arms, and they're one of the biggest AK importers. And yeah, it's an awesome rifle. I wanted a truck gun, and I've had a handful of truck guns, something that can ride right next to my seat, and I can always kind of have it available. But the thing I've struggled with a truck gun is, it gets bounced around so much on like rocky roads or me kicking it, and whatever, it gets abused pretty good. And so if I put a rifle in there that costs $1,200 and then a $500 optic and blah 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 blah, suddenly if that's a $2,500 rifle, I don't want to just be kicking it and abusing it. Well, with an AK, it's like, I don't care.
So whatever.
That rifle is $650 or something, and it's great. It's only 15 inches wide, and so it's great to maneuver inside my truck if I had to. And yeah, I mean, I could throw it out the window on the freeway going 75 miles an hour and pick it up, and it's still going to shoot. So.
Yeah. It's a drag through the mud gun.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why it's so popular.
But man, the funny thing is, I honestly, I do a handful of podcasts, and the reality is, man, like I tell people, I'm not a subject matter expert in anything. Like I'm really just like an average guy. And so when people ask me to be on, man, I truly am super humbled. I'm honored to be here. And if there's any wisdom or, positive, anything I can put out in the world, I'm happy to do it. But yeah, I'm just like everybody else, man.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I mean, the goal of the Men of Bronze podcast is, I do like to talk with experts in their fields, but I also want to talk with just regular dads and entrepreneurs and husbands and fathers. And, that's the idea here is we all have something of value to share. I'm looking to connect with guys who are trying to be better men and better fathers and that sort of thing. And even if you're just on that path, you have something to offer because you're in that mindset and you're looking for change. You're looking to improve yourself. You're looking to make a good, solid family. You very likely have a good moral base and that sort of thing. And that's the kind of guys that I want to talk to because those are the kind of guys that need to be heard. So you fit the bill.
Thanks.
So I wasn't quite sure. I was kind of trying to track down exactly what you did for a career, and I wasn't really sure. But
yeah,
you do in your video for your Guinness World Record, which we'll get into soon. You talk about we made this plate carrier. Is that something part of your business or?
I worked in the outdoor industry for about 7 years.
Okay.
And when I say the outdoor industry, it was primarily backpacks and like outdoor gear for hunting and the military and tactical gear, things like that. And most of that was spent in marketing. And so kind of the mystique around what I do is kind of by design. And it's because I want people to ask. I want people to just see me out doing crazy, cool, fun stuff all the time and know that you can really do and be anything you want to be. If you want your 8 to 5 to be hiking around in the mountains, like you can make that your job. And so that was kind of what I was doing for a while. And I needed a change, man. I left that about 10 weeks ago and I still do marketing. I do marketing for a bunch of different brands. My 8 to 5 right now is at a company here in town that owns a bunch of tire and auto businesses. And I'm having a blast doing it. It's something totally new to me. I mean, the marketing principles are the same, but it's a totally new business. And then I still do a lot of like freelance stuff with social media and content and stuff on the side. So marketing is, that's my job. But I like that people have to ask.
Yeah, and you're keeping yourself busy regardless, and that's all good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid to chase their dream job, and they're especially afraid to leave their current position. We get so comfortable, especially if you start making a decent salary. We get so comfortable in those positions. We get so scared to leave, and that's almost like a power that gives power to our employers, right? Is, you know, they don't have to give us a ton of money because they give us just enough to keep you in there, and you know, you get those small bumps of pay every year. And I think a lot of people have entrepreneurial spirits, but they just can't chase it.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. And I went through the same thing. You know, the first real kind of career oriented job I ever had was in law enforcement. And I did that for about 5 years. And 5 years into it, I had promoted a number of times. I got a bunch of raises. I'd done all the things I needed to do to make it a career. And then right around the time we had our first son, I just had to have an honest conversation with myself and say, is this what I want to be doing for the rest of my life? Is this something I can be proud of for the rest of my life? Is this how I want my kids to see me, you know, as they grow up and as I'm raising them? And a lot of times, you know, I was proud of what I was doing, but at the same time, you know, I was coming home not always in the best state of mind. A lot of times I was very frustrated and had a lot of kind of pent up frustration and anger and all these things. And it's so hard to compartmentalize that and leave it at work. You know, they tell you to like separate work from your personal life.
Yeah.
That's pretty dang hard. You know, it's great to think about and talk about, but the reality is it's very, very difficult. And so about that time is when I started having those conversations with myself, and I realized this is great right now. It's probably going to be great for 5 more years or 10 more years. But if I don't leave now, I'm going to find myself in a position where I can't leave. You know, I'm strapped into those golden handcuffs and I can't get out. And so that was one of the most difficult things I ever did, man. I at the time I had a bachelor's degree in psychology and 5 years experience in law enforcement. And I asked myself, like, you know, what job do I want to do? And then with the experience and resume I have, who's going to hire me? You know? And that was difficult because I was like, who wants my skill set? Like, there's not very many people. There's not very many jobs out there for what I had. And so I made the decision to go back to school and get a master's degree in business and really kind of have to start figuring some things out for myself as far as trying to be an entrepreneur and then going to work in marketing. And that was a difficult transition for me, man. You know, I didn't even know how to open Excel. Like, my first day of business school, they were like, okay, it was like accounting 101. And they're like, okay, everybody, like, open up Excel. We're going to start working on balance sheets. And I'm like, time out.
Yeah, what's that?
I don't even know what a spreadsheet is, you know? And so I had a very steep learning curve, and I'm actually pretty proud that I was able to, you know, go through that process and come out the other side. But I totally get what you're saying about people just settling into a comfort level and being afraid to go after what they really want. Because, man, I was there.
Yeah, especially I mean, I don't have a master's degree or anything, but I went back to school at 25, and it's tough. Yeah. It's very nerve wracking. It's scary to be out of school once and to go, you know, to get a mortgage and all that kind of thing, and then to go back into school is terrifying.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I mean, it worked out. I got my career that I have now. That, again, kind of like you, who knows how long I'll be there. We'll see what the future holds, but you know, you got to take that leap of faith sometimes in yourself and in whatever to, you know, just go out into the darkness and see what's going to come out on the other end.
100%.
And it's usually a great thing. It's usually life-changing in a good way. Sometimes you fail and you fall flat on your face, but you pick yourself up and get back on the horse. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is what I mainly took away from it is that it opened up more opportunities than what I had in the past. And that's been the biggest thing. It's not necessarily that I went back to school, I quit my job, I went back to school, and all of a sudden, like, I had it figured out and life's been easy. Like, that was not the case by any means. But what it did was it allowed me to broaden my network, right? It allowed me to broaden the number of people I knew and the relationships I had. Getting more education opened up more doors that were previously shut to me. And by combining those things along with new skills that I had, I suddenly became a more well-rounded, you know, job seeker. And I found that, like I said, jobs that weren't even calling me back were suddenly calling me and asking me to come in. You know, it's like people, you know, that years prior, like I couldn't even get in the door. And so, yeah, life hasn't been perfect, but it definitely gave me the opportunities that I didn't have.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you put that extra time in and you went out on a limb there, and it'll open up some more doors that you never thought possible. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, that's the beauty of stretching ourselves, right? You know, if you sit in your comfort zone, you'll never have those doors open no matter what. So you got to stretch yourself. We need to get out there a little bit, and I mean, you'll grow. You know, you have one life here on earth. Do something, do what you want to do, because the last thing you want is to settle into a career or whatever, and then 30 years later retire on some regular little pension or whatever you saved up and say, I wish 20 years ago I did this, or I wish I could have done that, and I wish I wrote that book, or I wish I whatever, you know. That's not what I want.
And the thing is, that is literally everything in life. Like, that's every hobby that you don't start. It's every friendship that you don't nurture. It's every, you know, every physical goal that you set that you don't achieve. Like, it's absolutely everything in life. You know, like Bruce Lee actually said, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but there's no limits. There's only plateaus. I don't know if you ever heard that quote, but you know, there's no limits. There's only plateaus. And it's like, man, we really like, it's anything. It's not just jobs. It's everything about your life. It's like, it's as much as you want to limit yourself is how far you're going to grow.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. And that's one of the things what's one thing that I'm trying to do here too, is that's why I started the podcast, was to stretch myself. And, you know, the whole idea was I was trying to find a podcast doing what I'm doing, and I couldn't quite find one that I loved. You know, Order of Man is out there, and it's a fantastic podcast. I love.
Yeah, I know Ryan well.
Yeah, I love what Ryan's doing. I love Order of Man. It's fantastic. So, but my idea was, how can I get the most out of these things? And the answer was start my own and have the conversations myself.
Cool.
You know, that's how you get the most out of it, is having the conversations yourself. And the connections I've been able to make with some of the guys that I've talked to is it's awesome. It's awesome. Good. You know, I've got authors that are sending me books already and that kind of thing, and like it's just so great to be able to connect with these awesome dudes.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty enjoyable. So, you know, definitely go on a limb, and it was nerve-wracking for sure. Like, I don't know how to do a podcast, but you know, here we are, right? And it's going all right. So doing something right.
For sure.
But so you do have a Guinness World Record.
You know, it just got broken. I'm a has-been.
Really?
Here, I'll show you this though. This is it's official, man. Here's the Guinness certificate.
Oh, cool.
But it right now it's nothing more than a piece of paper anymore.
Oh, no. If you're just listening on the podcast, you can go on the YouTube and check out it's the real deal.
It's the real deal.
So it just got broken how long ago?
Couple months. It was some I don't know who it is. It was some guy in the UK, and it's funny because I'm actually stoked about it.
Sure.
Like, not mad at all. Don't have any aspiration to do it again. But I'm stoked about it. You know, the thing is, going into it, it was never about me trying to like make a big name for myself. I wanted to reach a personal goal of mine that was, you know, break a world record. I'd always wanted to do that. I thought that was a really cool goal from the time as far back as I can remember. But then also I wanted to inspire other people that, like, here's this crazy, and for people who don't know, most people don't know. So my record is the fastest 10-kilometer run carrying a 100-pound backpack. And my time was 1 hour and 8 minutes. And the record before me was 1 hour and 15. So, you know, I broke it by 7 minutes. And then the guy who beat me broke mine by like 4 or 5. Like he beat me pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. Like, I wanted people to see this and people to say, oh, I could do that. I'm going to break it. And then go push it and keep pushing that record further and further. And man, it was awesome because right after that happened, my DMs were flooded with people saying, oh man, I could crush that. That's so fun. And literally I was like,
do it.
Like, high five. Like, I want you to crush it.
Yeah.
I hope you crush it.
Yeah, get out there.
I don't think any of those guys ever did.
Yeah.
But it's way more difficult than it sounds. But someone did finally break it. But one of the cool things that came from it, there's been a ton of really, really positive things that came from it. But one of the things that was the most beneficial for me was that I've been able to talk to, I don't know, I'd probably say at least 50 people who were getting ready for, like the Special Forces selection and Ranger School and all these different things, primarily in the military, where they're a rucking challenge, like a rucking standard, and guys saying like, hey, I got to hike 10 miles with a 50-pound pack or whatever. Like, tell me about your shoes and your gear and your style of training and how I recover and all those things. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to push people and challenge people and help people. And so, yeah, I care less that it got broken.
Sure.
But now it's been fun that, when rucking gets brought up, my name for some reason just gets thrown in the conversation of like, yeah, talk to Austin. He knows about it. So
that's awesome. That's cool. Yet again, though, you put yourself out there on a limb and stretched yourself. And again, it's opened up these doors to be able to just, regardless of helping these guys, you're able to just communicate with them and be on another plane of availability to offer something else into the world.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it was I was totally that guy. And I've been like this, when I was younger, I was this guy, and it's something I've worked on my whole life, is being the guy sitting on the sideline or on the couch saying, oh, I could do that, or I could do it better, or, whatever. And when I first saw this record and it was 1 hour and 15 minutes, I remember I was at work. I looked it up, I saw it, and I remember thinking, I could crush this record. I just had packed out a spring bear. I do a lot of hunting. I'd killed a bear. I packed the whole bear out. I had all my gear, my camp, everything, and hiked out a couple miles in these big steep mountains. I remember thinking like, man, I'm in shape. My legs are strong. I'm mentally tough. I'm going to crush this thing. And so the very first time when I was like, I'm going to go run it and see where I'm at, it was on the 4th of July. And I don't know what the Celsius conversion is, but in Fahrenheit, it was about 103 degrees. So that's pretty dang hot.
Yeah.
And I got like a mile and a half into it and was like ready to pass out. I didn't even get 2 miles, and I gave up, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a lot more difficult than I thought. And so, yeah, man, I've kind of been that guy of, sitting on the sidelines saying I could do that. And that's something that I've been trying to, teach and coach myself out of. And then when I do say that, actually step up and try and go prove it. So it's been a good lesson for me to learn, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's an important lesson to learn for sure too. I've gone through the same thing. I was that dude as well. And when you kind of come out of that, I mean, obviously you need to consistently be aware of what you're doing, or else you can fall right back into that. But having that mindset change into being a doer versus just a talker is awesome. Your life is so much more fulfilling when you do things instead of just talk about them.
100%.
And when you can make those small changes, whatever it is of, doing your exercise or, watching a little bit less TV or, getting a few more pages of a book in every once in a while. I mean, there's people I know that, I mean, I'm not saying anything about people that don't read, but there's tons of people that don't read at all, like ever. And I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But I've gained a lot from getting back into reading, even if it's fiction. You're just, at least you're stretching your mind and you're working that muscle that you haven't worked since like elementary school. Because we go through high school and you read the Coles notes because I don't got time to read a book in high school. I'm doing cooler things than that. And then you find yourself 10 years out of high school and you haven't read a book since. And it's like that's a problem. It's a skill that we're going to, everyone says, oh, I read on my phone all day. It's different. It's so much more different.
One of the things that's really that I would recommend to people who are wanting to, are hearing this and thinking like, okay, what do I need to do to go from being a talker to a doer? One of the biggest things that I found is when I surround myself with people who are overachievers, who are like-minded, who are doers, who when they say they're going to do something, they'll do it.
Yep.
When I surround myself by those people, I reflect that. I become that. And my circle is pretty tight. Right? I have a lot of friends. I have a big network, and I love that. But my true like inner circle is pretty tight because I want those people to be, those loyal, diehard people who, when I need something, are going to be like, yeah, let's tear this wall down and just blast through it.
Yep.
And so, a great example of that is 2 weeks ago, I was driving, listening to a podcast, and I heard a guy talking about this endurance challenge that he just did, where him and David Goggins ran 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. And I was listening to this like, holy cow, that sounds awesome. It sounds super difficult, but it sounds awesome. And so my wheels start turning, like, could I do this? When could I do this? How would I do this? And I start having that conversation. Well, that was on a Friday. Saturday, I'm flipping through Facebook. I see a different guy who did the exact same challenge with David Goggins, telling about how miserable it is and how difficult it is, talking about the exact same challenge. So I'm sitting there on my couch, of course, and I've now heard this twice in 2 days from 2 different people. And I'm like, well, it's a sign.
It's got to happen.
It's got to happen, So it's Saturday night. I talked to my wife. I'm like, okay, I need you to support me. I'm going to do this. This is how it's going to work. I'm going to start Friday night and, blah, 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 lay it out. And she's like, okay, let's go. You got it. Well, then I quickly realized this is going to be very difficult to do by myself. Like I kind of need a network of people to do it with me. So Sunday, I text probably 15 of my closest friends, and 9 of those people that I text are like, dude, we're in. Like, no matter what, we're in. This is Sunday, and we start Friday. So these guys had like less than 5 days notice to do a extremely difficult endurance challenge. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's, surrounding yourself by people who are goers and doers and are like, oh yeah, this sounds terrible, but you know what? Like, we got your back. Let's go do it. That has been huge in helping me kind of achieve some of the goals that I've been setting for myself. And it's a great, easy step for people who want to push the boundary of what they think they're capable of, is surrounding themselves by those types of people.
Yeah, that's one of the things you'll find in most success books or stories or speeches or whatever. That's a staple in most of those areas, is to surround yourself with like-minded people and successful people, because there's that saying where we become the sum of the 5 closest people we hang out with, and we're the sum of the 5 closest people they hang out with as well. So watch your circle and watch who your circle hangs out with.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's obviously true, because look around you. We're pretty tribalistic as humans and that sort of thing. So we'll fall into line with each other. We want to be accepted. We want to be in the crew. And you'll see it even in groups of people who lack success. If one person in that group starts working hard or trying to better themselves, you'll get that age old, like, oh, well, who are you to start running or working out, or who are you to start reading books? But you dummy, you don't read books, or you don't do this, or you don't do that. And that's a sad affair, right? You want to surround yourself with people where if you say, you know what, man, I'm going to commit to reading, 2 books this month. You want your friends to be like, awesome, man. You know what? That's motivational. I'll do that too. Those are the people you want to keep closer. People who see your goals, they want to see you succeed, and they want to succeed as well. Like, be someone that pushes their limit, and you want to be someone that can offer that to them too. I want to offer them something. I want them to stretch themselves.
Exactly. You nailed it. And like, I know quite a few guys who will say things like, I don't want to be in a group chat. Like guys shouldn't group chat. That's just weird.
Man.
That's a backwards attitude, man.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's a pretty toxic attitude. One of the biggest strengths I've found is by being in, like, creating group chats with certain groups of people. I have a group chat with people for my physical goals. I have a group chat of people who stretch me like financially and who I look for business and financial advice from. And then I have like a, close kind of family, like a family knit tribal group who I rely on for other things. And that is fantastic in my opinion. Like, you don't need just one group. It's okay to have different groups that strengthen and help you grow in different areas. And we talk regularly, it's like a constant, it's almost like a banter, like a friendly banter of like just pushing and pushing and pushing. And when people get out of line, man, people jump right in and it's like, hey, knock it off. Like, let's go. Let's keep, and that's healthy. I think that is healthy. I think it's healthy to call people out when they step out of line. Right?
Sure.
It's healthy to cut the toxic, whatever it is, the naysayer or the, what are you doing reading books? Like you could just watch the Netflix documentary, like cut that out, like, hey, why don't you pick up the book? I'll send it to you, but yeah, I think that has been such a blessing.
That's a good tip. I have different groups for family and between close buddies and stuff like that, but I've never actually thought about doing some group chats for specific learning skills or developing a certain skill. I love that idea. So I might try and implement that myself. Yeah, try and wrangle some guys up who are into fitness and that kind of thing, or some guys who are trying to do, like, I want to learn how to do the stock market. I don't know anything about stocks. So I should start a group with a couple of buddies that do stocks and then kind of pick their brains a little bit, because that's something that I'd like to learn a little bit. There you are.
Dude.
We're back on track.
Solar flare, man. I don't know.
No problem. Easy edit. We're back on track.
Okay. Rock and roll.
Okay. We're back in the game here. So anyway, I was just saying I love the idea. And I've never thought about doing the group chats, so I love that, and that's something that I might try that out, because I think that'd be really beneficial. Good. I could see a lot of growth coming from that.
Yep.
This is just a side thing. It's gonna just kind of funny that I wanted to ask you, but I don't want to forget. Is claiming to be a Bigfoot expert. Tell me about how that came about.
So, man, what year was it? Probably like 8 or 9 years ago. Me and my wife are driving to California. We're driving to the desert of Nevada, and it's like 3 a.m. My wife's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. And you probably don't know much about Nevada, but it's literally, there's stretches of highway that are hundreds of miles, and you don't see a car, a house, anything. Like there's nothing. So we're on one of these stretches. It's like 3 a.m. and I see this thing off on the side of the road. Right? It's like kind of off the road, walking. And it's like, you can kind of see it out of the side of the headlights. And people think I'm crazy when I say this, but I swear I was fully, like, I was sober, I was conscious, like everything. And me and my wife were both just like, what is that? And, we didn't get like a great look at it, but we could definitely both see it. And it was really large, big, and it looked like it was wearing like a full body ghillie suit. It looked like it was, I don't know if it was like you couldn't see you could see like the outline of a body, but you couldn't see skin. You couldn't, like, I don't know what it was. I just can't explain it. I have no idea what it was. And I've always joked, like, the only thing I could chalk it up to was Bigfoot.
Bigfoot in the desert.
Yeah. So since I started telling that story, more and more people, it's funny because Bigfoot's one of those things that, like, a lot of people kind of have a story, but don't want to tell it for fear of being ridiculed.
Right.
And
yeah.
As I tell my story, whether it's like in lighthearted or as a joke, when I tell my story, people suddenly like beam and they open up and they see it as like a gateway of, let me tell you about my uncle's experience, my dad's, mine. And dude, it's been a roller coaster, man. Like, I've been asked to be in Bigfoot documentaries.
No way.
Yeah, dude. And the reality is, like, I honestly think it's very possible. And there is so much land out there. I've been in some remote places where there's nothing. And it's not outside of reality to me that there could be something running around, or a species running around, that just hasn't been, fully discovered and documented yet. And so, yeah, like, call me crazy, but I think it could happen. I think it could be real.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a self-proclaimed Bigfoot expert.
So the question is if you see Bigfoot being a hunter, are you going to shoot him?
Oh, man, I get asked that a lot, and I would rather try and get the first, like, very steady filming, not like out of focus, shaky, grainy. No
better proof than dragging the body in.
That's very true. Maybe I could do both, but
yeah,
I sure would hate to kill like one of something that there's like 50 of in the Northwest. Yeah. So
2 of them.
Yeah.
They haven't mated yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, I'm glad I asked, because that's funny. I mean, that's pretty similar. If you ever have, I've seen the same thing when people talk about like alien stuff.
Yeah.
And like nobody wants to say anything until one person says it, and then they're like, "Oh, let me tell you my story." We've actually, just a side thing here. We've actually got a guy in town. I live in a small town of 5,000 people, just outside of the nation's capital, outside of Ottawa, and he's like all in on aliens, and it's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But he's funny. His name is Rob the Painter, because he's a painter.
Yeah.
He's an odd cat. Doesn't really talk to anybody, but if he does, like, if he'll be painting someone's house, and if you ask anything about aliens, it's like the floodgate opens, and he'll start telling you about this certain species he saw in Carleton Place, which is the next town over, and you can tell it's them because the shape of their nose. And
oh my goodness,
I'm like, man, don't look at me with this big thing, because you might think you might think I'm not from here. It's like,
yeah, in the wrong light.
Anyway, he's a character, but it's awesome. Fun. I mean, you're like, yeah, you're probably off your rocker a little bit, but you're safe and you're fun.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. Whatever, it's fun.
Exactly. I don't judge people for what they want to believe. Like,
all good.
For it,
let's talk a little bit about EDC, because you're big on the everyday carry thing.
Yeah, man.
And the first thing I want to ask you is, why the brass knuckles all the time?
It started in prisons, man. So when I say I worked in law enforcement, I worked in a maximum security prison for 5 years. And in a maximum security prison, you're dealing with people that, serial killers and like the worst of the worst, man. We had death row there and everything. And those people, man, like, there's some people, for the most part, most people live a pretty protected, sheltered, comfortable life.
Yeah.
The reality is, there's some really bad human beings out there.
Yep.
And they're capable of some really bad things. And there was a time period where a lot of those people were seeing me as like a target, and it was like, when I get out, I'm coming and I'm doing this and that and whatever. And I got those threats every day. And so, yeah, it just became like all the time, I was just ready. I was ready for the door to get kicked in. I was ready to get jumped in the parking lot. I was ready to, all these different things. These scenarios are playing out in my head all the time. And some of it was probably like a little bit of paranoia because of the environment I was in and, what I was surrounded by. But I took a lot of that same, the preparation side of it, and then kind of channeled it into more of like, I don't need to be paranoid. I just need to be prepared. And so I have that's it. There's weapons in my house, in my truck, on my body, just everywhere. And it's not something that I'm like, I'm not, how do I say it? It's not something that I'm like, oh, I don't do it as a point of like attention. It really is like at any given moment, there could be someone from my past that pops back up in my life, and I still think about that all the time. And the funny thing is, brass knuckles, that's kind of, I don't know, it's a whatever thing. It's a very close range weapon. And if I had to use that, I'm probably in some trouble. But like, I always have a knife on me. I'd say 98% of the time I have a gun on me. And yeah, that's just part of the preparation. That's one of the great things about living in America too, I guess,
Yeah, we don't have that at all.
Yeah.
You are like not allowed to carry a gun at all.
Yeah.
You can have a shotgun or a rifle in your vehicle. Like say you drive a truck, you could have it in the back seat. But that's where it ends. It's like, and it better be trigger locked. I think you can have it unlocked if it's in your truck, because they treat your truck as like the gun safe, because it's a locked vehicle. So I think that I might be a little bit wrong on that one. But our gun laws are pretty strict. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but it's pretty and it just got worse.
It's getting stricter. Yeah.
Yeah, it just
I've been paying attention.
Unfortunately, like the ignorance that comes from like our prime minister about it, it's pretty sickening. I mean, he talks about like the AR-15 it's like that's the talking point, right? That's the gun everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah,
they know nothing about it, and it's already a banned rifle here. You can only use it as at a range. Well, in this latest press conference, he's like, you don't need an AR-15 to hunt deer, so we're banning guns. It's like, well, that's already banned.
Yeah.
So what are you banning?
Yeah.
And I mean, it got ridiculous. They're banning like a double barrel shotgun that's like crack loading it. Like that's why is that banned?
I have no idea.
And their excuse is like high capacity, fast reloading. You can't get a slower gun.
No.
To reload.
Honestly, that's probably the last thing I would pick if I was a crazy person that was going to go do that.
If I see a dude walk into a mall with a shotgun like that, anyone's going to jump at him. He's going to shoot 2 shots and then crack the barrel open.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, now I can attack you.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the most ridiculous thing. And,
it really is, man.
Like, we do not have a gun problem here at all.
Yeah.
Like, at all. And it's just taking away from law-abiding citizens. Like Lord forbid you want to have a handgun. It's like, there's no point.
I'm a huge proponent. I'm a huge proponent of it. As a father and as a husband, it's my job to protect my family, right? And that's how I see it. In the U.S., like the Constitution allows that right. Like it gives me that right. Or I guess it doesn't give me the right. It is my right. And so I'm going to exercise that right. I have the right to religion and speech and life, liberty, happiness, all those things.
Yeah.
It's the same with owning a gun to protect myself and my family. And so why wouldn't I choose to take advantage of that? And it's funny because even in our country, we struggle with that all the time. Like that debate is raging right now. And some states have very strict gun laws. I'm lucky enough where I live, we're a very conservative state. And like, man, honestly, if I wanted to go out, I could pretty much, there's very few restrictions on guns. So I'm pretty fortunate in that aspect, but like why wouldn't I, as the protector and patriarch of my house, do everything I can to protect my family? Like I fully agree with you. It's a hard one for me to see both sides of, I guess, because I'm safe. Like you can see one of my gun safes right there. Yeah. It's locked. My guns are secure. I have gun safes in my bedroom. They're locked. It's like if I'm a responsible gun owner, I shouldn't have to. I think about it, but it's like my kids shouldn't have access to my firearms. works.
Absolutely.
You know, like I can be a responsible, safe gun owner and still own plenty of guns.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a hard one for me to see both sides of the argument on.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's tough because I was raised with these laws, right? So for me, it's like, I see it, and we're fairly low key on violent crime here in Canada, which is nice. You know, we've got 1/10 of your population, so the violent crime is much lower. On top of that, we don't have massive cities like you guys do. You know, we've got a couple big cities. Like literally, we have a handful of big cities. Like we have no one here.
Yeah.
So we're pretty safe in that aspect, but it's still pretty crazy because like if I had a home invasion and I have a shotgun, if I shot somebody with my shotgun, I would be asked the questions. They'd be asking me, how did you possibly get to your gun so fast that you were able to attack him with your weapon? You know, they would say, Mr. Lopes, how did you get from your bedroom to your gun safe, unlock your safe, get your shotgun, load it, and attack the invader?
Because your ammo,
your
ammo has to be separate, right? Yeah.
So it's like it's just crazy, and we've had cases in Canada where people have defended their property with a firearm and they get charged. You know, we've had instances where they don't get charged as well.
Yeah,
but it is scary, and it's like if you come in my property, there should be no questions asked. Yeah. You're not welcome here. Right. If I decide to bash your head in with a rolling pin, it's like, well, you shouldn't have been here.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I own a very small parcel of land. Stay off of it. So it's like that's not too much to ask.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's crazy things. I mean, you always hear about, you know, I don't know if it's true, but someone breaks in your home and they fall down the stairs and sue you or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
insane.
I don't know. The law is crazy sometimes, but
yeah.
Anyway, you guys have those rights, which is nice, and we just don't. We don't even have freedom of speech.
Yeah, I know.
So, you know, we're able to, and that's the biggest thing with, you know, the whole Jordan Peterson thing. I don't know if you follow Jordan Peterson at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that whole Bill C-16 thing is, you know, it's passed. It's now legislated. That anyway, it's a slippery slope, and it's crazy, and we have to watch it. So it's one thing that we're trying to actively combat, but it's tough because it's hard. It's going to be hard to get a conservative government back in power.
Yeah. And
once laws are passed, reversing them is really difficult.
Yeah, it's easy to take things away. It's hard to get them back, man.
So we'll see. True. But talking about EDC, you know, like I think as men we love tools and stuff. So like I myself, I always have a Leatherman on me, so I carry a black Leatherman rebar that I have on my hip all the time, and I've got a few knives as well. And I think we just love the idea of tools, and we love a nice tool. Like every guy loves a nice knife. Yeah. And I think that's why I asked you the other day about that knife, because I really want to get a fixed blade knife that I can keep, you know, horizontal on my waist. Yeah. And I love that one that you posted just a couple days ago.
Oh, you know what? I just moved it to my safe because it's it was in my office here, but my kids come in and out of here, so I took it away. But yeah, man, like I agree with you. There's a lot of times that, you know, a knife alone, like if you had to pick one thing, man, there's a lot you can do with a knife besides just poking people, right? It is a great tool for a variety of things. If you need to, you know, break your window or cut your seatbelt or do whatever, like there are so many practical applications for carrying a knife. I'm such a gear junkie. I love talking gear with people because you're right. Like guys love gear.
Love it.
Like, and the more you find yourself in situations where you need it and don't have it, then you're like, gosh, you know, I never want to go without that again. Like lately I found myself needing flashlights more and more. And I'm not wanting to use my cell phone because a lot of times, like I want my cell phone available for other stuff or whatever. And so just like in the last couple months now, I think I have like 4 different sizes of like I have like a large flashlight all the way down to like a little tiny pen light and things in between. So yeah, I find a need and then I'm just like all in on
I'm all in. Yeah. Give me all of it. All the options. That's why I transitioned from carrying a knife daily to the Leatherman was I was finding the knife was so practical that I wanted to push the level of practicality. And I was like, how can I get more out of this? And that's when I bought my first Leatherman. And then I fell in love with the black one, the black version. I was like, I got to get that one too. It's like $90. I'm like, well, it's worth it because I use it all the time. But there's nothing worse than as someone who carries a knife or a multi-tool, there's nothing worse than when somebody who knows you always have it asks you for it and you don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I die inside. They're like, oh, Lopes always has a knife. Yo, Lopes, pass me your knife. I'm like,
oh, it's my shot.
And you're like, that was my moment. That was my moment.
You could be the guy and you weren't the guy.
I mean, I used mine today. I was in Canadian Tire. You guys don't have Canadian Tire, but I was looking at ratchet sets, and they're all zip tied shut. I was like, oh, I want to look inside. So I pulled Leatherman out, snap some zip ties off there. I can see inside now. Anyway, it's Canadian Tire. They don't care. But, they're all zip tied shut for shipping purposes, right? And they don't want people stealing individual pieces. But, I wanted to see inside. Luckily, I've got this tool here. I can open it up, take a look. No big deal. So, I mean, it's super common. You keep a tool on your hip. Even if you don't think you need it, you'll start finding purposes for it. And you're going to be like, wow, where was this my whole life?
Yeah. There's some skills that every man should know. And, with a knife, it's like making a fire, gutting a fish, gutting a deer, quartering a deer. Like there's some very basic primitive skills that revolve around owning a knife that every guy should know. I find myself, like you said, being the guy. A lot of times it's like, hey, do you have a knife? And yeah, here you go. Oh, by the way, like you can get one of these,
Yeah.
You can get one of these for yourself.
They sell these every day.
Yeah.
Those are some of the skills I need to broaden my horizon a little bit. I wasn't raised a hunter or anything like that. But it's something that I want to get into, especially because my brother-in-law is a big hunter, and I want to do it just for like the bonding purposes of us being able to do it together. And being a little more self-sufficient. So those are some of the skills that I would like to learn, because I've never quartered a deer before. I've never shot a deer. I've never defeathered a duck or anything. So those are the kind of skills that I do want to learn. Because I think they're important.
I think self-reliance is one of the most rewarding skills that you could learn and come away with in life. And I'm, there's things with self-reliance that I'm still like, gosh, canning. I have no idea how to can. I want to learn. I want to be able to can and create my own food storage. Farming, I don't know the first thing about farming. Like I'd love to have a plot that I could till and take care of. I don't. But when it comes to wildlife, ducks, deer, elk, moose, fish, like I got it. I can do those things. But one of the most rewarding things that I've found is being able to do the entire process. So, finding an area, going to that area, finding an animal, hunting that animal, killing that animal, cutting it up, packing it out, taking it home, butchering it, cooking it, and eating it. That entire process is so extremely rewarding, because you can look at that and say, I did this every single step. I did this, and I'm now providing and sharing with the people I care about. And again, going back to, being the patriarch and the head of your household, it's like, that is a very rewarding and fulfilling feeling.
It also gives you an appreciation for how simple our lives are, right? I can go to Walmart and buy almost any meat I want in any quantity, like literally any quantity. Like They were they're throwing out 400 packs of chicken breasts that are 1 kilogram the other day at my local Walmart. 400 kilograms of chicken getting thrown in the garbage. I'm like, look at this. Like, look at the surplus. Like, it's so sad, right? But when you're able to connect with nature, and, you know, God's creation, and be able to get your hands on that and really get out there, you get so much more of an appreciation. And I've never met a hunter that doesn't almost love the animals they take down. You know, you get like this connection with it, and you've got this, you know, everyone thinks like hunters are like these guys that don't care about the environment. I'm not sure where that image comes from, because it's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, almost,
that's a very old fashioned thinking, I think.
Yeah. Almost all of them are like, they're basically conservationists.
Yeah.
You know, they care about the land more than anybody.
100%.
So I find that so weird, because I don't know where that image comes from, but it's definitely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
but that's a great skill, man.
Yeah, those are some skills I want to learn for sure, because I think those are pretty important. And I've got a guy in my life, actually, he goes to our church, and he told me one year, he said, you know, money was tight. So I went and took 2 deer down, and, you know, I fed the family for a year on deer.
Yeah.
That was our meat, because money was tight. We couldn't go to the Walmart and buy meat. We couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, how cool is that, though, that you provided? Because you don't need money to provide all the time. You provided with your bare hands. You know, I mean, with a rifle, obviously, but you know, like that, I find that so cool.
Yeah, it's a great feeling, man.
Do you do any bow hunting or anything, or just rifle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I try and do it all. I almost hunt almost year round. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I saw some pictures on your Instagram of like you in the snow, and you got that weird little single man tent and everything.
Yeah,
really getting out there.
I'm a gear guy.
Yeah, I like it.
I got it all, I think.
Well, that's cool, man. We're rounding up close to an hour, so it might be an okay time to wrap it up. We covered a lot of good topics. I mean, you brought a lot more to the table than I think you thought you would have. So I appreciate you coming on, man. But a couple more questions just before I go.
Okay.
How, in your eyes, can we be a more effective man?
You know, I think really one of the easiest things people can do is kind of take a self-assessment and figure out, like, where am I today? Where do I want to be tomorrow? And where do I want to be in the future? Take that self-assessment and be honest with yourself. You know, like, if you're not meeting, you know, if you're not up to the standard you're setting for yourself, like, that's fine. That's probably a good thing, if anything. But take that assessment and use that to set some goals for yourself. And I just did a podcast the other day primarily about goal setting. And so it's kind of fresh on my mind right now. And so I'm finding myself going back and doing the same thing, where, you know, your question about to be a better, more efficient, you know, man, I think what you need to do is figure out for yourself what you want to become, and then figure out how you're going to get there, and then start with taking the first step towards that goal. So if you want to run a marathon, it's like, tomorrow you don't need to run a marathon. Tomorrow you need to run a mile. You need to walk a mile. You need to get out of bed an hour earlier and go work out. You need, you know, take the first step, fix your diet, go to bed earlier, wake up earlier, you know, do those things today and tomorrow and then the next day to get yourself to the marathon. But it's going to start with an honest self-assessment, figuring out where you're at, and then figuring out where you want to be.
Yeah. Do you have any tips on effective goal setting or anything like that you can share?
One of the biggest things I think for myself that I've found is making my goals difficult, but achievable, but difficult enough that it's pushing me to be uncomfortable. So like the 4 for 4 for 48 thing I just did, right? I just did that 2 weekends ago. So that was a physical goal, right? And not every goal is physical. It could be financial, work, education, whatever. That was a physical goal. Prior to that, I hadn't ran 4 miles in, I don't know, 6 months. Like, Just hadn't. I've been running. I've been doing sprints. I've been running a mile. I've been working out, but I hadn't done any distance running. I knew it was going to be a challenge. Outside of my comfort zone, yes. Outside of my limits, absolutely not. Like, I knew I could do it. And so when I set my goals, I try and look for things, like I said, that are attainable, they're achievable, they're realistic, but they are definitely pushing my comfort level. You know, that Guinness World Record I broke, that first time I went and did it would have been so easy to give up, right? I ran 1.5 miles. That's not even close to 10K.
Yeah.
But doing that it set the bar. I knew I had 1.5 miles in the bag. I knew my starting point was 1.5 miles. I only had to get to 6.1, right? So now I knew, like, okay, how much time is this going to take to get from 1.5 miles to 6.1? And that was July 4th, and I broke that record on September 22nd. So there you go. You know, make it attainable, but make it difficult. I mean,
yeah, I like
so much
that.
of it is a mental battle, man.
Oh, for sure. One thing that I've heard people say before too, and that's something that I try and do when I set my goals, is set something that's, you know, like you said, attainable, but also set something that's specific. You know, if you say, "Oh, I want to read more," say, "Okay, well, that's all great, but what does that mean?"
Yeah, one book a month, one book a week,
one
page
page
a day. Yeah, exactly.
I want to read more. Well, okay, you read one page. Well, that's more than you've read in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Say, okay, well, is that your goal though? So, you know, your goal is I want to read a book this month. Okay, that's great. What does that mean? Pick a book. Oh, the book's 200 pages. Okay, divide that out by 30 days. Now you got to read what? 15 pages a day. Do it. 15 pages a day. Do it. And those are that way you can keep yourself accountable.
Yeah.
So if they, I want to run more, say, okay, well, what does that mean? Run down the street? Or do you want to run 2 miles a day? You know, set goals that have defined limits that are achievable and make it happen.
Definitely. And with that, one of the things that I learned 10 years ago was to celebrate my successes. You know, it doesn't need to be this big fanfare. It doesn't need to be made public. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be anything outside of my own mind. But, you know, I told you my first time running that, attempting the Guinness was 1.5. Okay. So the next time I go, let's set that bar at 2 miles. And maybe I push it to 1.8 or 1.9. But when I hit that 2 miles, I'm going to celebrate it, right? I'm going to tell myself, great job. I'm going to give myself some positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to scratch the 2 mile goal off my goal sheet, and then I'm going to put 2.5 or 3 or whatever. But I'm going to celebrate that success. And I think so often we get in this mindset of like, this is the end goal, and I'm not going to, you know, give myself kudos until I hit the end goal. That's great. And that might work for some people, but like for me, I have to set like micro goals all the way there. And like I said, I don't need to tell people about them. I don't need to post them on social media. I don't need to do anything, but it's something for me. It helps encourage me and helps push me. And I'm like, okay, Austin, you got this. You were at 1.5 miles today. You just crushed 2 miles. Tomorrow, you got 3. I know you got 3 in you, you know, and that type of positive self-talk and reiterating and celebrating your success is just going to push you further and make achieving those goals easier, in my opinion.
I love it. Thanks a lot, man. I think that's great. That's a good place to stop. So I think you brought a lot to the table. I think, like I said before, I think you brought more than you thought you would. So I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your willingness to come on the show as well. But before I let you go, where can people find you? Any websites, any Instagram, whatever you want to plug?
My social media, my Instagram is probably the place I'm most active. So that's super easy. It's just at Austin, AUSTIN .Legg, LEGG. And keep up with all my adventures on there.
Perfect, man. Well, man, I appreciate your time.
Of course.
You know, you're a great father. As I can see in your posts, you're a father of 2 boys, right?
Of course, yeah.
And, you know, you're an active husband who's always trying to be a better man. So I appreciate your time coming on and sharing a bit of your wisdom and insights, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website at www.menofbronze.ca. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and share the show with your friends and family. This was the Men of Bronze podcast. Be worth remembering.